are in for a treat today. Listen, thank you so much for stopping in and enjoying the Marlana J Today show. It's all about motivation, inspiration, and community. And so today, I have a special guest in the house, none other than Mr. Charles Ford, but some of you all may not know him. So I'm going to introduce you to him. And some of you do know him because he's been around a long time. He has a bestseller book out right now, and we're going to talk about his book. We're going to share his stories, and hopefully, in the end, you'll be inspired to do what God has put in you to do. Follow your dreams. Don't let anything stop you because this gentleman did just that. Let's talk to him. Let's see what he has to say to us, and let's see how God is going to make this day just like Marlana J Today's show is all about. Mr. Charles Ford, thank you so much.
Marlana, thank you for having me today.
I'm excited. You know why I'm excited. One, this fabulous book, right?
You know, that's a long time coming. That's a 22-year project
Wow.
putting this book together.
Wow.
And when you talk about living beyond my dreams, the Attorney Charles Ford story, it's just that. There's things in this book that I, as a 16-year-old, maybe even a 20-year-old, didn't think I would be doing, and some of the things I've accomplished. So it's an exciting book. It's been on Amazon since January 28th, and right now it's 4.8 stars, and people
Wow.
have found it to be motivational, inspiring, those types of things. Even Amazon did put out a review themselves. And
Yeah.
they said people are finding it to be inspiring and motivational and those types of things. And
Yeah.
as an author, those are the things that you want to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, that people, when they read your book, they're getting something out of it.
That's right.
And
That's
so
right.
that's why this book is so important to me.
Well, you know, we're going to talk about the book because that's why you're here. But more importantly, I think the audience, my audience, the people that are listening and watching, because it's so important that your story is told. Because you're not just an author, you're an attorney, a newly appointed prosecutor, formerly public defender, and you're an actor because you've been in videos and you are in the stepping community. You have so many variable talents, and we're going to talk about some of those tonight. So relax,
All right.
take it easy, and we're going to dive right on in to how Mr. Charles Ford came about.
Okay.
Your mom, your story about your mom and your father and how instrumental they were in your life. Can you just take us to your childhood in terms of when did you know you wanted to study law?
Well, you know, that's the interesting part. I was well into my 20s
Mm-hmm.
before I even thought about law school.
Yeah.
And that was interesting. You know, being raised by my mother and father, my father was one of those hardworking individuals. He works
Mm-hmm.
for GM. He won all the awards for never being absent, being on time every day. I mean, that was important to him.
Mm-hmm.
My mother, who was a teacher, graduated from Alabama A&M in 1951, but could not get a job as a teacher
Wow.
in this. So she was in Alabama, moved to Michigan, and never really received a job as a teacher
Wow.
in 1951. And I watched her clean houses every day. Every day, that was her big job early on in my life. Was that
Mm-hmm.
she would go to this one doctor's house, and she would just take care of their home
Wow.
and take care of their children to the point where she was the person that would have them do their homework, those types of things. So she was the teacher and the housekeeper. And so, but that was to kind of my benefit because she loved teaching,
Mm-hmm.
but I
Mm-hmm.
was a child at home that just was really receptive to
Yeah.
being taught.
Yeah.
And I just never forget my parents asked me when I was about 8, 9 years old, what did I want for Christmas? I said encyclopedias.
Right.
and not understanding that that was my World Wide Web. So if there was a word I didn't know, if there was a place I didn't know about, I could just go to the encyclopedia, and I was starting to learn, and it put me kind of ahead of my class
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
a little bit. I was always kind of the teacher. The teachers, all my teachers really they liked me. They loved me.
Oh yeah, because you're a likable person, right?
Yeah.
He's so likable. Um, you know what's really interesting, and I think our generation grew up with the encyclopedias. We grew up with maps. We had to learn how to read a map,
Oh
and
yeah, definitely.
I remember my grandparents doing the same thing. What do you want to do? Well, you're going to get these encyclopedias and you're going to study. That's what you're going to do. You're going to learn about the world. Let the world come to you. And I think for African Americans, that's how we had to do back in the day. Our kids, our parents, the generation before our parents. You talk in your book about Miss Sally Ford. What did she mean to you, your grandmama?
Well, my grandmother, yeah, Grandma Sally, she was very important to me because she had 10 kids,
Mm-hmm.
7 girls.
Wow.
And when we used to visit from Lansing, Michigan, go to Huntsville, Alabama,
Uh-huh.
my aunts and my grandmother would just love all over me. I'm 4 or 5 years old, and they were beautiful.
Yeah.
They were beautiful ladies, and I just couldn't wait to see them.
Yeah.
And but there was one of my aunts that really was the first person that you're going to be an attorney.
Wow.
And I was like, 8, 9, 10 years old, and there's no way that was on my radar.
Mm-hmm.
I was an athlete,
Mm-hmm.
and the only reason I was an athlete is because of my brother.
Yeah, he was on the basketball team, and you
Yeah.
wanted to get on the basketball team too.
Well, yeah, he was. We played little league baseball,
Uh huh.
and my brother was good looking. He was strong. He looked, just really fit. I called him a Black Rock Hudson. For some
Okay.
reason, we used to watch Rock Hudson movies, and he was just that guy. He
Yeah.
was just that guy. And so you've got a younger brother that's 11 months younger than you.
Uh huh.
I wanted to be like him.
Yeah.
I wanted to be like him.
Yeah.
So he was a pitcher on the baseball team. So my father bought me a catcher's mitt for Christmas. So
Okay.
I had to catch all of his balls that he threw. And next thing you know, I didn't realize I was developing a skill.
Yeah.
But the team that I got on was that they really wanted my brother. But he said, I'll play for you if my brother can play too.
Oh wow! How many years apart were you all?
11 months.
Oh,
11
so
months.
y'all were almost like twins.
But
Yeah.
he was always a little bigger.
Okay.
He was always a little bigger. And so I got on the team. So I was loving just being like the bat boy. I was
Yeah.
grab the bats and
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
But I was on the team, had a uniform. But the starting catcher
Mhm.
got sick, couldn't play, those types of things. And the
Wow.
only person that was really capable, they thought, to play catcher was my brother because
Mhm.
he was athletic.
Yeah.
But my brother said, my brother can catch because I used to catch him all the time. And
Nice.
next thing you know, the coach was like, okay, he's kind of small, but we'll put him behind the plate. And then I became like one of the best catchers in the league.
Yeah.
I used to bat. They put me at ninth batting because they didn't think I'd get on base. Next
Yeah.
thing you know, I'd get on base every time. Next thing you know, I was batting first, and I was a catcher. My brother was batting fourth. So I was starting to get some confidence about my athletic ability
Mhm.
through my brother. He's the quarterback on the football team.
Mhm.
So who was I? I was a person he threw passes to all the time. But
Yeah.
I learned how to catch really well.
Okay.
So I became a really good athlete. But
Mhm.
then I got bigger.
Okay.
Then I caught up with him.
Yeah.
And so that my talents, and then I would read up on the sports, and so I really had some inside knowledge on what was going on.
Mhm.
And so I ended up being the MVP of the football team my
So you
senior
went.
year.
Okay. So let me ask you. You went from playing baseball, softball, um, football to basketball.
Basketball, yes.
Now, how did that transition? How did you become a basketball player too? But back in the day, though, you were around the same age. Sports was really the thing we did, right?
Right.
You went from one sport to another sport to another
Yeah.
sport throughout the school year.
My parents they did a really nice thing for us. We moved about a block from the playground.
Wow.
And so at that point, the basketball court was there, baseball diamond. So we played all the sports.
Yeah.
When it was football season, you played football. When it was
Right.
basketball, you played basketball. When it was
Right.
track, you ran track. And then you played softball, baseball in the summer. So I was getting introduced to all these sports. But one of the things that I realized early on, I didn't like to lose. You know,
You're still like that, Charles.
yeah, he said that didn't change, right?
That did not change. You're
Yeah, I
very
didn't.
competitive. On
I
the
mean,
dance floor, you're competitive.
yeah,
You're competitive.
yeah. It was just really interesting that I became that competitive. You know, I practice more than anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up with I'm a baby boomer.
Okay.
When you're a baby boomer in our neighborhood, we had kids all over the place.
Yeah.
But I still to this day don't know why.
Yeah.
Between 8 o'clock and 4 o'clock, 8 a.m. and 4 p.m.,
Uh-huh.
I was the only one on the basketball court. I had it all to myself.
Wow.
I would just play hour after hours after hour. Then at 4 o'clock, everybody would come and then we would play games.
Yeah.
And then so I found myself at a young age being very good at basketball.
Wow.
And then to the point that the older guys would pick me up, early.
That's nice.
And so that became one of my mainstays. But football was probably my best sport
Okay.
that I really enjoyed. But I was just, after high school, I was just too small.
Yeah.
Taking any further.
Well, we're gonna dive into it because that is something that you talk about in terms of your sporting capability, your sportsmanship. He's got a couple of pictures in his book. Let me make sure I'm at the right camera here. And yeah, so he's got some good stuff in here about how athletic he was. Got some more wonderful pictures of his athleticism. And one thing that stood out to me, look at that. I mean, it didn't stop, did it? I think one thing about sports is discipline. And I think your discipline led you to the Hall of Fame, all right, at his high school. And I think that's one reason why you're who you are today, right?
Yeah, that's
because the discipline that you have, it takes a lot to become what you've become.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I was the early riser at the house. I'd get up, I'd read the newspaper, I would draw pictures, I would do anything that I could, before everybody even got out of the bed.
Right.
And so, but the discipline was real important, and that's why I was talking about when I was at the basketball court, people weren't there.
Right.
I mean, I used to have a calendar, and I would write down every day in the summer that I played basketball and what I did.
Yeah.
And then I started getting a forward calendar where I would say, okay, we want to work on this, we want to work on that, and I stuck to that calendar.
That's
and
awesome.
I'm like that today. If I have a job, I work for the Cobb County School District, I work for the public defender, now I'm working for the solicitor's office. My schedule is that I get up at 4:30. I'm working out by 5. And then I'm getting dressed, and then I'm eating my breakfast, and then I'm getting to work.
Yeah.
And that kind of sticks with you. That's the kind of discipline you need. And when I was studying in high school and college, I could study till about 8, 9 o'clock, and I'd fall asleep.
Right.
Then I wake up about 2 in the morning. I can study as long as I want. Even to this day, I wake up at 2 o'clock.
When do you go to sleep? When do you go to sleep? If you're so that goes to your gifting too. Some people are just truly gifted in this world, and I truly think you are one of God's chosen. When I first met you, your kindness and your personality came across. The sincerity of what you do in this earth and how you move is real, right? There are a few chosen ones that have multiple talents that can sustain a heavy schedule like yours and still be able to look as good as you do, right? And as healthy as you are, right? And continue to move at a momentum that a lot of people can't move at. Yeah, and you talk about that in your book.
Yeah, it's important that you stay healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're looking at a person who's never smoked, never drank alcohol. So I thought those things were important if I'm going to sustain being the kind of athletic person I am. Now, when I
Right.
say athletic person, that's in everything you do, even with the
Mm-hmm.
dance you talked about.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
dancing
yeah,
is really key.
yeah,
We talk about how in the dancing community, in my background with the dance and modern dance and jazz and all of that, and now I can do stepping because I don't have to jump and leap and do all of those crazy acrobats that young people do.
right.
I can't do that anymore. Um, but when you're constantly taking care of your body and doing something you love to do, it brings joy, right? It brings us a sense of balance.
Right.
Would you say that that's what helps you stay balanced?
Well, that helps you stay balanced, but I think in life you have some kind of tragic moments,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Mm-hmm.
think those sometimes catapult you to some of your better times.
Right.
You know,
You talk about a traumatic moment. If you want to talk about one in particular, No Pain for the Dreamer.
yeah. Well, that's a great chapter, in my book for me. But there's a couple things that cause me, some kind of illness or injury, those types of things. But the thing I talk about the most is my broken leg.
Mm-hmm.
When you have worked all your, your youth, your young life, trying to be the best basketball player
Mm-hmm.
you can be,
Mm-hmm.
and I got there.
Right.
I mean, I was the nation's leading scorer in college. I'm 5'9". I'm averaging over 30 points a game, and now all the colleges want me to come to their school
Yeah.
because I went to junior college after high school because everybody thought I was too small.
Yeah, because
Five,
you're
five
a
nine,
small guy.
40 pounds. They're not thinking you can play Division I basketball. But my
Mm-hmm.
freshman year in junior college, I broke the school record. I got 42 points
Well,
in one
that's
game.
because of all them 4 o'clock
Yeah,
to six
it's
o'clock
like
or 8 o'clock
practices,
practices,
and
right?
then yeah, and
Like
then
Michael Jordan
yeah,
did.
and then my sophomore year was my breakout year.
Uh huh.
I mean, your first four games are 32, 32, 39, 42 with no three-point line. So I'm playing basketball. Now, I've got everybody's attention.
Yeah.
Colleges, Michigan State wants me now, Michigan, UCLA, Indiana University. So these are just like top-notch schools that
Yeah.
we'll give you a 2-year scholarship.
Wow.
But something that happened I never thought would happen.
Mm.
This professional scout saw me play,
Mm.
and I'm 19 years old.
Yeah.
And he says he could bring back the NBA because I was really a Showtime player.
Yeah. You Showtime,
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah, I was
Showtime.
a Showtime
Yeah.
player because Pistol Pete Maravich was coming up at that time, and he was in the 60s, and he was just a Showtime player.
Mm-hmm.
And I read his Sports Illustrated article, and I said, that's the kind of player I want to be.
Right.
And so at that point, when you're trying to be this Showtime player
Mm-hmm.
and it's working for you,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden in the 12th game of the season, you go up for a layup and you snap your tibia and fibula with your own
Wow.
power. And you're looking at an athlete that never been hurt. I never
That's
missed
tough.
games and practices. And so now you're in the hospital for 21 days. You don't walk for a year. You rehab for another year. So 2 years, you're just trying to get your body back in shape.
Mm-hmm.
Because after I got out of my cast, I was 155, almost going to 160 when I broke my leg. But now when I get the cast off, I'm 138 pounds.
Look at your camera in telling that story. Look at your camera and tell people how to stay motivated through experiences that take you off your rocker.
Well, I wasn't really that motivated after I broke my leg. I thought the world had come to an end.
Mm-hmm.
But you need some people or some things to happen for you to get, come out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat at home for about a good month and didn't want to talk to people, didn't want to do anything.
You talk about that in what chapter are you talking about in that particular one that got you
I think that was
your
like
mentor?
chapter 3.
Your mentor came and
4.
started talking to
Yeah,
you.
well, what happened is my mother was concerned. See,
Mhm.
mothers always play this part in your life. And she called my basketball coach. She says, you guys got him there
Mm-hmm.
where he thought he was this invincible. He's the best player. So you got to come and do something. So my basketball coach, he comes to my house, loads me in his car, takes me to the cafeteria. And then everybody's coming around. Charles, oh, man, we just sorry what happened.
Yeah.
You're great and all
Yeah.
those kinds of things right around lunchtime. But then the bell rings or 1 o'clock hits.
Yeah.
And everybody
Disappears.
leaves. And you're sitting there almost by yourself.
Yeah.
And you go, the world is still revolving.
Moving.
People are still doing things. And
Mm-hmm.
you're sitting here, oh, woe is me. I got a broken leg. But, I was
Mm-hmm.
always a great student.
Yeah.
So go to college.
Right.
And so that's what I think was the driving force. Just seeing that people cared about me and they said I was great, but then they went about their business and
Yeah.
doing their thing. And then
Yeah.
here I am sitting there moping about the fact that I can't play basketball. Well, there's a whole lot of other things you can do besides playing basketball.
And you were so smart. You were at the top of your class. You were so smart. But when we have dreams, sometimes we get so involved in the dreams that we have, we forget what God gave us to really do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So transitioning a little bit coming out of college and going into a career field that may have taken you off the path a little bit. Talk about that. Talk about how you went off the path and then had to come back into being an attorney.
Well, that was really interesting. I worked for the Michigan Department of Transportation my entire life. 17 years old until 48. I worked at one place.
Yeah.
But the human resources director took interest in me between my junior and senior year, and he had me work that summer. And so I ended up going to Northwood University. And one of my teammates, who he and I used to fight for the best grades and stuff, so we were studying together.
Yeah.
His name was Dave Coleman. Never forget him. He says, Charles, what are you going to do after you, get out of college? I said, well, I'm going to go work probably for the state or something of that nature.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, I'm going to law school.
Oh, that was a competitive piece for him.
Yeah, he said
that was competitive.
Yeah, he said, I'm going to law school. And he's a year behind me. I says, why are you going to law school? He said, because my dad's a judge.
Oh.
But then, I'm captain of the basketball team, so his name was Judge. For the rest of we still call him Judge to this day.
Right.
So Dave. And he said, you should go to law school. And so then at one of our away games, his father came. And I had dinner with him. And he said, Dave told me you're going to law school. I said, Dave told you I'm going to law school? I said, I hadn't really thought about it. But then you get a judge, a sitting judge says, if there's anything I can do to help you, let me know.
Wow.
And you go, wow, I got a judge that said he'll help me. And I wasn't even thinking. I'm 20. I'm in my 20s, and I'm not even thinking about law school.
Right.
But then I'm working for the Michigan Department of Transportation. I'm a human resources manager. So you try to get your master's degree in something related to your work. So I go to Michigan State University, and I get a work on my degree in labor industrial relations. So labor law is one of our classes.
Right.
Now, I take the test in labor law, the final, a day early.
Yeah.
Because Magic Johnson, and we'll get to that a little bit, he just won the national championship. And they're out in Vegas going to watch the Holmes and Cooney fight. And he says he wants me to come out there. And I go, I got an exam that day. He said, you can't work it out? Well, I worked it out. I took it a day early.
Yeah.
Get back, and the professor calls me that I took the exam with. Now, professors don't call you after the exam.
Right.
Unless something was wrong.
Right.
I said, he must have thought I cheated or did something not right.
Yeah.
So he calls me and he says, Charles, it's Dr. Wilkinson. He says, you got them all right on the final. You got the best grade. And I was like, oh, really? He says, yeah. And I put some tricks in there, like if it's illegal, discriminatory, is that right? He put all these little
labor
tricks in there.
Labor laws are very tricky.
And I got them all right. You know what he says after that? You should go to law school.
So everybody's telling you to go to law school.
So everybody's pointing me to law school, and I'm not even thinking about. Now I'm in my mid-20s.
Yeah,
I'm in my mid-20s thinking about law school. I mean, so I start talking to people about it. They say, hey, everybody said I'm going to law school. I have this union rep that he and I are always against each other because if a person gets laid off or has a grievance, he and I were always battling against each other. And I was talking to him about it. And one day I come back from lunch, and there's this packet on my desk.
Now, how old are you? How old are you right there?
Right there, I would say about 27, 28, about 28.
Okay.
So there's this packet on my desk with a yellow sticky that says, stop talking about it,
and do it.
It's an application to Cooley Law School.
Oh, wow.
So this person actually brought the application
Mm-hmm.
to my office. Now I
Yeah.
opened that thing up and looked at it. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I mean, the library, it was slick, and the history of the school, the backgrounds of the professors,
Yeah.
and the list of all the classes you were taking. I just looked
You
at
got
that
excited.
thing. I was real excited because I thought that kind of fit me.
Yeah.
I looked at that packet so long, so when I went to apply,
Uh-huh.
it was really interesting. That packet had expired. So I had to get a new one.
Because you was just thinking about it,
Thinking about it.
contemplating.
And so I took the LSAT
Mhm.
and did very well on it.
Yeah.
Started getting offers from schools like Iowa.
Wow.
They wanted to give me a full ride. 3/4 of it would be paid for. But what I didn't let everybody know in the book was that all my education was paid for.
It's
as
amazing.
far as I could go, I was part of a program called the Best and the Brightest between the ages of 12 and 14, 15, when I really didn't think I was going to be an athlete, but I was a
Right.
good student.
Right.
And in the summer, and I ended up giving up 4 weeks, 2 summers, and 6 weeks, 2 summers. And that's so I'm done when I'm 15. And then next thing you know, I get a letter when I'm 16
Wow.
that says that your education is paid
Paid
for
for.
as far as you can go. Now, some people would just jump up and down for joy about that, but I was an athlete. I'm gonna get a scholarship anyway, you know. But
Very competitive, very innate
Yeah.
in the fact that you, even though you had all of these things happening for you, um, you still wanted to go above and beyond
Yeah.
those measurements because you yourself internally wanted to challenge yourself. And I think in this book, it reaches those pinnacles where an average person may say, you know what, I've done enough, I've accomplished enough, I've got the rewards, I've hung out with Aretha Franklin. We're not even going to talk about the name dropping that we could do at this point. And for those who are in the current times, you're on Carmichael's, who is a very wonderful artist in the jazz and stepping community. You're in his video. You're just a what we call a classic man, right? Because you have all of these attributes and things, but internally you have a fire. Where do you think that fire comes from?
Well, I know exactly.
Okay.
I can tell you, I lived in pain for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I talk a little bit about that in my book.
Yeah, chapter 7.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
you read chapter 7. That's great. I just love it when people they know my book. But I lived in pain. Didn't know what it was from.
Yeah.
But matter of fact, I had a doctor give up on me
Yeah.
that says, well, I can't help you. And he was probably supposed to be like the best dermatologist in the city, in the area. But he told me I can't help you. But he didn't come in and tell me. He sent his nurse in.
Mm.
And then his nurse called me at home.
Wow.
I mean, no, I was on the job. Called me and said, there's a young resident who's going to start up his own practice. You should go see him. And I went to see him. So he just opened up his practice. He is the one that saved my life.
Wow.
I mean, if I have to, Dr. Mitchell Reinick, and I know his middle initial to A.
Does he still practice?
No. What happened was when I came to Georgia, he was kind of shutting his practice down.
Okay.
So keep in mind, I'm with him from the time he's a resident
Wow.
till he retires.
Wow. That's a long time.
Same doctor.
Wow.
But at one point, I was so bad with the pain. And
Yeah.
I would get these lumps, and they would break open, blood would come, and I was ready to give up. I mean, it was worse than a broken leg.
Yeah.
And so I was in so much pain one day, I go into his office.
Mm-hmm.
And I go in, and he says he knew I was hurting, and he knew I was ready to give up.
Mm-hmm.
He says, if you don't give up, I won't give up.
Wow. Wow.
I mean,
If you won't give up, I won't give up.
Yeah.
That's poignant. because we are in a world today where it's so easy to give up. Um, we're challenged by financial uh, disenfranchisement, right?
Right.
We see our diversity leaving, the opportunities that were open for you because of diversity
Right.
um, may not be there
Yeah.
in the future. And so, one reason why I wanted to have you on here is because I want people to be able to be inspired when they hear your story, when they see your face, when they read your book. I want them to be inspired to go for their dreams because you didn't stop. Even when you could have stopped, you've accomplished some things and you have made some things happen. But in this world that we're transitioning into, where mentors aren't the same, our kids are being mentored by social media, right? Where we actually had coaches. They don't have athletic departments anymore in school. They're taking all of that away. So, what do you think we can do for our children that are coming up right now? What do you think we can do?
Well, that's why I wrote my book.
Mm-hmm.
The movie go Back to the Future.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I mean, we got to go back
Yeah.
to move forward.
Yeah.
I mean, just a little bit. We have to
Yeah.
understand what got us here,
Yeah.
and I think that's what my book does. It takes me back.
Mm-hmm.
You want to know what's inspiring me? It's the
Yeah.
fact that I saw people who were worse off than I was.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one of my healing things was going to Mayo Clinic
Yeah.
and going into the sessions where they had us all come in and talk about our illnesses,
Yeah.
and what we were going through.
Yeah.
And there were people who said that they would trade me head up
Yeah.
for my illness
Right.
versus theirs.
Right.
And so then you realize then that there's people worse off.
Yeah.
And so you have to really kind of rise above your own pains and insecurities and things of that nature,
Mm-hmm.
and look at what could be ahead of you.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And I just never really. I think the chase for me is greater than the capture.
Mm. The chase is greater than the capture. That's gonna be a tag. The chase is greater than the capture
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
give us the because. What's the reasoning?
Because it's exciting when you're trying to accomplish something.
Yeah.
Like being in law school.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Every day studying for exams. Like you had to be ready. You had to read 20, 22, 23 pages. You had to be
Yeah.
ready every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And if you weren't ready, the teacher would tell you to leave.
Right.
Tell you to leave.
Right.
You may not be an attorney.
Yeah.
So you're making sure that you're ready, you're prepared, and so you're chasing this dream.
Mm-hmm.
Law school was a dream. It was
Yeah.
beyond my dream.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to go to law school, but then when I was actually captured it,
Yeah.
it was like, what's next?
Right.
There's always.
So what's next?
What's
So
next?
what's next?
This is going to sound very.
No, go for it.
Go for it. I left high school
Uh-huh.
to be a math teacher coach.
Okay.
I mean, that was my dream. I was
Okay.
good in math. I was good in athletics. It was just
Yeah.
a good fit, right?
Yeah.
But after about 2 years after high school, I was like, I want to be a movie star.
Okay. I got it. I got
Because
it. We got it.
because I wanted to. I saw people on television acting. And I was in speech and drama, so I was a young speech and drama kid.
This is his debut. Well, no, he's done videos before, but
Yes.
so all of my movie producers out there, everyone that's interested in seeing him on film, Charles Ford is now moving into the arena of theater,
Yeah.
movies.
Right, but but then I wanted to be president of the United States.
Mm.
So I said I want to be in the movies, and I want to be president of the United States.
Right. Right.
And I don't know what because I study presidents.
Yeah.
A lot of people may not know that it's not in my book, but I study presidents. I have the dollar piece
Okay.
for every president that has passed away.
Wow.
And I'm waiting for Jimmy Carter's, but the Congress won't approve that until later on this year, and it'll be available next year, 2026.
What do you think about what's happening in our political arena right now? Your ambition to maybe be president one day. What do you say to our political arena right now?
Well, what I say is that don't forget about people.
Yeah.
Just don't forget about people.
Yeah.
We that's what's kept this country together.
Yeah.
That's what made us who we are, the United States. That's
Yeah.
just the name itself, United
States.
States.
We need to be united
yes.
and together on
And-
even our different opinions.
Right.
Our country was built on creativity, innovation,
Yes.
industrial. We were built on our hands,
Yeah.
manufacturing,
Yeah.
and
we went
yeah.
from the agricultural revolution
yeah,
to the industrial revolution.
right.
And so that's when we were just great.
Yeah.
We were great. But don't lose sight of people. I was a elected city councilman,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to change the world.
Right.
But there's politics.
Yeah.
I mean, I needed 5 votes out of 8
Mm-hmm.
to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have to work together
Right.
to try to make that happen.
Right.
I was elected school board member. We had
Yeah.
to close schools. They were talking about closing my high school. It's still open.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's still open.
Right.
But we can't forget about people.
We've got to get back to a place where our country and our community are working hand in hand. I just see our community, and we had a conversation. Another group of ladies and I were talking, and I was on another podcast, and we were talking about how the church community and the marketplace community used to work together. And that's how we made such a strong alliance and was able to move in a direction that we moved as a people.
Yeah. Well, what's happened is that people don't feel that they're needed.
Mm-hmm.
See, if you look, another piece of my book, I still want you guys to go out and buy it.
And what chapter is that?
It's in the early chapters.
Okay.
It's the early chapters. When I talk about this country is only as strong as its weakest link.
Yeah.
And I talk about John F. Kennedy.
Uh-huh. Oh, I love him.
Yeah, John F. Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Yeah.
Now, I'm like 9 or 10 years old when I hear this.
Me too.
And I go, what can I do for this country?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm one guy, young guy.
Yeah.
But then you get Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Around 68, 67 says, if you're going to be, whatever you do, be the best that you can be.
Yeah.
If you're going to sweep streets, be the best street sweeper that you can be. But then that's when it hit me. I said, oh,
Mm-hmm.
if we want this country, this state,
Mm-hmm.
this community that you live in
Mm-hmm.
to be its very best, it takes each
Everybody.
takes each and every one of us
Yeah.
being the very best we can be.
Mm-hmm.
Because no matter what you do, and I want people to hear this, whatever you do, just be the very best at it that you can be,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to make this country stronger.
Yeah. You were saying that, and I was like, me too. And I wasn't even born yet, but my grandparents used to show me the clips of John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King.
Yes.
My grandfather used to say the same thing about how important it is if you work as a janitor in the school, be the best janitor you are in that
Yes.
school. Marlanna, you may not go to college, but if you decide not to go to college, whatever you do, be the best at
Be the
it.
very best.
And when you do that, there's nothing you can't do. And never put anyone else down based on their status and what they do, because you never know who you're sitting next to. I remember him taking me down in the city where everybody was hanging out, clubbing, and just hanging out. And I remember meeting a bum on the street, just a homeless guy, and my grandfather said, "Now sit down and talk to him." And I thought, why you want me to sit down next to him on this bench? And we talked. And when I tell you, he was so prolific in what he was talking
He had a
about.
story, didn't he?
And his story was he was a Yale professor
Mhm.
that had a mental breakdown and lost his job, lost his family, and now he was living on the streets. But he didn't lose the educational part of who he was, but the mental capacity wasn't there anymore.
Mhm.
And my grandfather taught me something in that moment.
Mhm.
You can't judge a book by what you see.
Mhm.
You got to be able to read it.
Yeah.
And that takes us into this, right?
Yeah. Well, we sometimes, even young people,
Mm-hmm.
they lose respect for people who got the gray hair,
Yeah.
who got the bald head,
Oh, yeah.
and who look a little feeble,
Oh, yeah.
But those are the people who made it so you can even walk the streets,
Yeah.
so you could be
We,
here,
we, I
and
mean,
you
we
can
wouldn't
learn
be,
from. You can
yeah,
learn from them,
we wouldn't have been
and
here.
that my mentor, Ralph Riddle, Senior.
Uh huh.
Man, that guy, he saw something in me.
Yeah.
And even when I broke my leg, he wanted me to come over his house every day.
Yeah.
And he talked to his wife's birthday was the same day as mine.
Yeah.
So we had some, we had that
He
in common.
fed you.
Yeah,
He fed you. He nourished that piece
knew
of you.
politics.
Mm-hmm.
He knew things about the country. Not that my parents didn't, but they
Right.
were working class people
Yeah.
who came from Alabama,
Mm-hmm.
who came here. He lived lived in Lansing, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
He was the first African American insurance salesman
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
the city.
Yeah.
So he knew politics.
Yeah.
He knew things that I didn't even think about. So
Yeah.
you need those kinds of people in your. I could have shut him off and said, "Man, I don't want to hear from you." But
Gotta
by
be
listening
opening.
to him, I think it catapulted me to want to do greater things.
I guarantee you there's a piece of someone in all of us,
Yes.
right? My art teacher was that for me.
Okay.
Miss Schwartz.
Ah.
Anna Schwartz.
What grade was that?
The 8th grade.
Okay.
And I was in New York City and was going to school. And my grandparents, I was living with my grandparents at the time. And she said, Marlanna, don't let anyone tell you you're not talented.
Yeah.
You're more than talented, you're gifted.
Right.
And my artwork was put in the Brooklyn Museum of Art.
Wow.
And the things that, if I was able to share anything in this moment that we've had today, it would be that mentorship is so important.
Yes.
We as adults need to make sure that we're going back and mentoring the younger people, because there's a lost art in that.
Yeah.
There's a lost art in mentorship, and I think it's
young people are
important.
watching you.
Mhm.
See, people don't think that, but young
Mhm.
people are watching you.
Yeah.
And they're listening too.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
listening too. Basketball coach for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I was a basketball coach for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I coached this school called Water French Academy,
Uh-huh.
just charter school.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was coaching varsity basketball, 12th grade, 11th,
Mhm.
12th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And we only had like really 4 players that really wanted to come out for basketball.
Yeah.
So I have to go to the cafeteria to say, hey, we need basketball players.
Uh-huh.
And so this one kid, name is O.D. Harris.
Okay.
He says, well, coach, I want to play, but I'm just not good at it. I've just never been good at it.
Mhm.
Oh, I want you. If you wanting to play is what I want.
Yeah.
He got out there. He was the greatest hustler. He listened
Yeah.
and everything. And one of the things I used to have my kids do
Uh-huh.
is you had to write me a paragraph about what you would do if you didn't play sports or anything like that. What kind of career you would go into? Well, I was, I had been elected city council and school board, and he had seen all those things.
Mm.
And so he was a hustler. I would put him in the game just to disrupt things,
Yeah.
because he would just be all over the place. Then he learned how to score the next year. So he just really,
You like to
grew.
challenge him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but now
Mm-hmm.
O.D. Harris
Okay.
is the vice mayor of Chandler, Arizona.
Wow.
And
So you impacted his
Yeah,
life.
he called me up, coach. And he still calls me
Call
coach. He
still
still
call
calls
you
me
coach.
and I
That's
love it too.
amazing.
And I love it.
Yeah,
He says,
we have
coach.
those stories.
He says, coach, I want to run for city council.
Yeah,
He ran for city council
yeah,
in Chandler, Arizona, and he won.
awesome.
And he always stayed in touch. We're going to do this. How can I do this better? What can I do?
Yeah,
And now he's vice mayor of Chandler, Arizona.
that's beautiful.
So you just never know who's
Right,
watching, who's
right.
looking,
Who's paying attention?
and paying attention. And
Mm-hmm.
so I used to have basketball players write this paragraph,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to write it before the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't write it by the last game, you didn't play. You didn't play. And so my two best players in one of my championship years
Mm-hmm.
hadn't turned their paragraph in.
Uh-oh. So they were in trouble.
Yeah, they were in trouble. So they ended up, I'll just tell you this.
Okay.
They ended up, I sat them out,
Uh-huh.
but I sat one of my assistant coaches was you can write your paragraph now. If you write it now, then you can write
Then
it.
you can get back in?
Yeah. And so then their parents, and this was our championship game. We had to win this game to win the championship.
Yeah.
And the parents were like, "Where's my son? Where's
Yeah.
my son?" I said, "Well, you were at the parents' meeting when I said that your child had to write a paragraph
Yeah.
before end of the season or the last game. They may not play."
Mm-hmm.
And so they wrote that paragraph. By the time first quarter came, they came up. I sat them out for the rest of the first quarter, but then I let them play, and we ended up winning the championship. But do you know what? Those were the two best papers
Wow.
that were
Because they really wanted to get in that game.
written. Yeah.
I'm going to read an excerpt.
Uh-oh. This is
I
what
was
wanna hear.
16 years old when my parents divorced. My brother and I stayed with my dad in the family house where my parents divorced until we graduated high school in 1972. I moved back with my dad to a house we grew up in 1975, a year before going to Northwood University. I slept in the room that my parents used to share. I was looking for something in the dresser drawer, pulled it out too far, and inside there was a letter from Michigan State from 1967. My mother had been accepted into their graduate program, but never went.
Yeah.
I want people to understand that no matter, it's living beyond your dreams. I know that you doing what you are doing now is a reflection of your parents, your grandparents, your great grandparents, your legacy that was left and imparted in you. And you're living their dreams
Yeah.
that they couldn't fulfill themselves.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing.
That was a just insightful moment for me.
Mm-hmm.
Here, my mother, who couldn't get a job as a teacher until till about 71,
Mm-hmm.
she finally got a job in the school district, where she retired from.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we're talking 51 to 71. You got to
Yeah.
wait 20 years to get your teaching job.
Yeah.
But when I saw that letter, I talked to my mother about it. I said, "Why didn't you go get your master's degree?"
Mm-hmm.
He said, "What year was that?" He said, 1967. He said, "I got 3 kids."
Right.
I got 3 kids. We're living from day to day.
Yeah.
Where's the money going to come from to go to school?
Yeah.
I mean, she sacrificed a lot.
Yeah.
She probably could have got a loan somewhere, could have done something, but she had 3 kids,
Mm-hmm.
my brother, my sister, and I, that she had to take care of. And then she took on it's in the book,
Yeah.
my
Took on her
foster-
father.
my foster brother,
Yeah.
and I was like, she sacrificed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So graduated with my master's degree from Michigan State University.
Yeah.
That was a tribute to my mother.
Yes.
That really was.
Yes. And the crazy thing is I was born in 1967
Mhm.
and I was a mother of 4 kids and couldn't go to school. Although I had a scholarship,
Right.
I didn't complete school until I was grown because I wanted to sacrifice for my children. And
Yep.
now they're doing well.
Right.
So I wanted to read that part because I think it's a reflection of how important it is for us to leave legacy and how important it is for us to follow our dreams. But even when we can't follow our dreams, our children can then take our dreams and go further with them.
Yeah. And we lived in a community where, we were supposed to go into the plant and work for GM.
Right,
and
right,
at
especially
that
in
time-
Michigan.
In Michigan, yeah.
Uh-huh.
But my mother and father, my older brother is a logistical engineer, retired from GM.
Mm.
My younger sister, was a master's degree senior accountant
Wow.
at University of Michigan.
Wow.
University of Michigan.
Wow.
Then my foster brother, who just adores my parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he always says he saved. We call him Big Van.
Yeah.
Always says they saved his life.
Yeah.
They saved his life.
Yeah.
Guess what? 38-year school teacher.
Wow.
38 years.
Reflection of what
My
your
mother,
mom.
He
yeah.
always said he never
It's
wanted to let my
beautiful.
mother down. He never wanted to let my
Beautiful.
mother down.
Beautiful
Now,
story.
And then I'm an attorney.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't happen from kids growing up in the inner city,
No.
in any city.
Right.
All 4 of your kids
Doing well.
are that motivated.
Yeah.
That motivated to go on and do.
It says volumes
That's
for
why
your parents.
That's why I dedicated my book to both my parents.
Yes.
Because it would be no book without them.
That's good.
Not this story.
Right.
It could probably be a book.
Yeah,
But it wouldn't
but
be this
story.
would not
so,
be there.
So we're gonna give this another go to make sure that people can not only hear what we're talking about, because I'll definitely make sure that happens, but it's Charles Ford, Living Beyond My Dreams, the Attorney Charles Ford story. And it is, I think it's more impactful. And of course, it talks about resilience in his brilliance, right? Carmichael said that.
Yeah.
I think the journey itself that you've been on is not only a phenomenal one, but it is an impactful one that people can read your story and say, I may not be able to accomplish everything, but I can at least put forth an effort and give it all I can.
Yeah, you reach for the moon.
Reach for it. Reach for them
You may
stars.
only get to the star.
Yeah, right.
But guess what? You're going to accomplish so much
Yeah.
along the way. And that's
Yeah.
why we have dreams. That's why we have things that were the goals.
Yeah.
And talk about your goals.
That's it.
I want you to talk about your goals
Right.
to people, because then it kind of cements itself.
Yeah.
And just like that, when I was talking about law school with
Yeah.
to the guy, and he brings the law school
Law books and everything,
he
and
brings
says
the
and
law
then
packet
and the
to
law
the
packet
yeah.
to the
Yeah,
actual thing.
because
And you were actually able to now Detroit Piston basketball camp and clinics, Coach Steve Moreland, Detroit Pistons staff member, Charles Ford, 2001.
Yeah.
I mean, come on now.
Yeah,
I
that
just
the Pistons actually bought my story first.
yeah.
At the camps and clinics, that was my job, was to go out to the camps and clinics to
Wow.
talk about basketball and academics.
Beautiful.
And the fact that I broke my leg, but then I came back and became an attorney. So
That's a blessing.
So the kids would understand that there's more than basketball
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that was a great job. It was a great. I worked
Beautiful.
that job for 12 years. It was awesome.
Well, Charles, I know I could talk to you forever because you have such an in-depth story, and you have a well of knowledge, a well of information, right? So we'll have to have you come back. Tell us where we can get your book.
Well,
Where we
it's
can
on
purchase your book.
Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
and it's doing well. But I wanted to do better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so just go to Amazon. You can
Yeah.
just type in author Charles Ford,
Yeah.
and it'll pop right up.
Yeah.
It'll pop right up.
Yeah.
And it's important to me because there's people. One of the things I started was I let people know that when you buy my book, I like to have a picture,
Yeah.
of you with my book.
Yeah.
And I've been getting pictures from San Francisco,
I do that
Denver,
too. I do that
Michigan.
too. I was like, please take a picture
Yes.
with you and my book. I think
But-
that's so important.
But one thing I just want to leave with is the fact that what I've enjoyed a lot about the book
Uh-huh.
is people are calling me and texting me and
Yeah.
sending messages on Facebook
Yeah.
about their story
Yeah.
and what they're going through
Yes.
and how they've overcome or how
Yes.
they'd like to overcome.
Yes.
And that's the thing I think
That's
is
why we do
important.
what we do.
We do what we do is
Mhm.
that people are sharing their stories.
Now,
and
how can they get your book? How can they get your book?
Well, they can get, like I said, they can get it on Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
or you can just call me.
Okay.
You know, you can
You
find,
do you have a website?
yes, you can go to, it's just attorneycharlesford.com,
Okay.
but
You said that so fast.
attorneycharlesford.com.
Okay,
Okay,
good.
and C Ford Law
Yeah.
attorney at
That's right.
attorneycharlesford.com.
Do you do any practicing outside of what you do for the state? Do you do any practicing?
No, you can't,
Right.
because of the fact that they take care of your license,
Yeah.
they pay for your malpractice insurance, so
Yeah.
you only work for them. But keep in mind, out of my 36 years I've been an attorney,
Yeah.
I've only worked for the public defender's office for 2 years and 8 months.
Yeah.
I worked for a private law firm for 2 years.
Yeah.
And now I'm probably going to do 2 years or more with the solicitor's office in Cobb. So
Awesome.
most of my time I have been a private attorney.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I've seen all sides.
Yeah.
The defense side, the prosecution side, the private attorney side. And I really like the law firm I worked for, the Abood law firm, and they showed me how to really be an attorney.
Are they here?
No, they're in Michigan. And
Okay.
Fred Abood was, him and his brother Camille, they're Lebanese.
Okay.
Couldn't get a job at any law firms.
Wow.
So they started their own.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
Fred Abood, the thing I like to say to him, he had 10 kids.
Wow.
7 are attorneys.
Wow.
And I got a chance to work with 4 of them, and they're just great attorneys. Great attorneys.
It's all about history. It's all about taking that journey.
Yes.
And I love taking journeys with people that have a story, and you have a story.
Yeah.
And I thank you for sitting down with me and talking with me today and just sharing your story.
Yeah.
And-
Marlanna,
and-
this is what I like to do.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I think I'm all that, but I think I do have something I can impart to people.
Yeah.
And something that can maybe keep you motivated
Yeah.
and keep you going. And that's what the book is all about.
Well, it is definitely that and a lot more, because it's funny in some parts of it. It gets you laughing, gets you crying. It definitely takes you on a ride. If anything, because you're such an enriched human being, your story now is in the earth and with this book, and you probably have more to come. But because you are now in the solicitor's office, you're probably going to talk more about maybe law in your next book and how to navigate through some of those systems. That would be a good book to put out.
Yeah. It'd be a good book to put out.
It would be a good book to put out, because you've had so many different variables with private law and then defendant law, and now you're on the other side of the the other side of the public defendant.
And that's what. And then I do have a documentary that is out. It's an hour and 10 minutes.
Okay.
Carmichael's company filmed me for 40 hours, and we probably finally have condensed it to an hour and 10. It premiered at the Academy Theater in Hateville.
Okay.
So we're gonna have some other showings of it.
Okay.
And, so
And what's the name of it? Is just Charles Ford?
Well, we just made that one the Attorney Charles Ford story.
Okay.
That's because it goes back to Lansing and it talks about my favorite places.
I love
being
it.
on city council.
I love it.
It's pictures of my school.
Yeah, I love
Sexton.
it.
And so it's really a good complimentary thing with the book.
Yeah.
And like I said, we do that, and we have book signs. So we don't know exactly when the next one's going to come out. But,
Okay.
we're looking at some different places.
Well, we're excited. I'm so honored to have him in my room here at the Marlanna J. Today Show. I am just so honored. Again, it's Mr. Charles Ford, Living Beyond My Dreams, the Attorney Charles Ford story. And now that we know that you also have a documentary, we're going to be looking out for that as well. And Charles, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me on your show. This has been fun. It's been a good time.
Well, next time we'll have him step. No, we won't do that. We'll put some music on and get him stepping. But thank you so much for coming. You guys go get this book. It is a blessing. And of course, I have my book out as well. Make sure, he talked about riding the wave, so, but make sure you go out, support Attorney Charles Ford and all that he has done and all he's doing in our community and what he's doing for our people. All right. Y'all be blessed.